Sonos promised a new era of sound with the Era 300. Bold claims, right? A year ago, I brought one home, and after 12 months of living with it, and with questions still rolling in from you guys, was it really worth it, or is the initial hype worn off? Hey guys, Elliot here from Smart Home Sounds, and there's no denying that the Era 300 promised big things when it was released back in 2023. Now, spoiler alert, in our initial review, we were big fans when they landed. From the unique design, the versatility of connections, the innovative driver array, and of course that Dolby Atmos and spatial audio support. Era 300 offered things we'd never seen before from a Sonos wireless speaker, and delivered on things us in the community have been crying out for a long time. I'm talking the ability to have upwards firing rear surrounds, Bluetooth 5.0, line-in functionality, that sort of thing. Of course, we all got a little bit excited, but like with all tech, it didn't come without its pitfalls. Obviously, no Google Assistant was a miss, the higher price point wasn't ideal for everybody, and its design, although unique, took a bit of getting used to. However, a year on, although nothing drastic has changed on the surface, having used this speaker for almost everything from movie nights in a home cinema setup to parties and cozy solo listening sessions, both as a standalone speaker and as a stereo pair, I've listed my hits and misses that are definitely worth bearing in mind if you're considering getting one for yourself. Plus, if you've already got an Era 300, stay tuned till the end because I'll be sharing my favourite tracks and albums that have all helped me unlock the full potential of this speaker's incredible spatial audio features. So, shall we get into it? First off then, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's talk about the design, because this speaker is a definite shift from Sonos' usual aesthetic. Despite its unique form factor, I'm a genuine fan of the Era 300 design, and it grows on you over time too. Because of the nature of my job, I'm forever moving this speaker around and setting it up in different locations, and sure, it's a little annoying they need about 2 feet of clearance above and 8 inches on the sides for optimum performance, but other than that, it's pretty much guaranteed to fit and look good wherever you place it. The updated top panel controls were a welcomed addition at release, and the same still stands now, especially that volume slider. As a long-time Sonos user though, I do keep swiping the volume to change track though, so I guess old habits die hard. Now I was a bit skeptical with the white colorway looking a bit tired after a while, but mine have held up really well and show no signs of discoloration anytime soon, despite living next to a window, which is always good. In terms of setup, it's a breeze. Like I said, these are always moving, and although I've been in the Sonos ecosystem for a long time, even if you're new to Sonos, you're not going to struggle using the S2 app for setup. It's class leading, and it shows. Now let's talk about connectivity, because other than audio performance and all things spatial, this is where Sonos really made some headway back in 2023. Naturally, just like the rest of the range, there's plenty of music streaming services to choose from. AirPlay 2 and Spotify Connect make playback really easy, but I genuinely can't believe it's taken this long to get Bluetooth connectivity from a Sonos home speaker. As you guys know, we're not regular Bluetooth users here at SHS, and as I kind of expected, I've not really used it other than in testing. When I'm at home, I 100% do prefer the experience of non-Bluetooth streaming, but it's good to have the flexibility, and I can't argue with them for making this an easier speaker for anyone to connect to. Oh, and it does also act as a bridge for the rest of your system, so you can stream Bluetooth throughout your entire multi-room setup, which is a nice little bonus as well. The arrival of advanced TruePlay tuning was a pretty big step for the Era 300, and the inclusion of quick tuning for Android was long overdue, but welcome nonetheless. While it's great for Android users to finally have a tuning option, a year on, I still can't help but hope Sonos expands this feature across the board. The lack of Google Assistant was another slight letdown at release, and things haven't really changed there. It seems there's been no resolve for the Sonos and Google relationship problems, with the more recently released Sonos Move 2 also skipping that integration. While Sonos voice control works well for basic functions, it doesn't offer the same level of functionality and personalization. Alexa is probably the best you've got, but if you're the type of person who thinks integration into the Google ecosystem is crucial, the Era 300 might not be the best fit. It's worth mentioning that line-in functionality too, because while I wouldn't consider myself a die-hard vinyl enthusiast, I am partial to some analog sound now and again. The fact the Era 300 and the 100 have joined the 5 in offering analog compatibility is still a massive plus in my opinion. It's just a shame you've got to pay an extra £19 for the pleasure with that annoying line-in adapter. Does it compete with traditional hi-fi kit? If you're an audiophile purist, you'd probably say no. But if versatility is what makes you tick, an Era 300 will be perfect. And if you're anything like me, it will probably have you add in a few more LPs to the collection further down the line too. Now, I've known I wanted to make this video for a while now, and I'll be honest, initially I couldn't wait to talk about this speaker's spatial audio and Dolby Atmos capabilities. That being said, while it's still undoubtedly exciting and offers a glimpse into the future, I can't sit here and confidently say it's reached its full potential just yet. I'm sure we all know by now, beyond Apple themselves, no one else has a dedicated link to the Apple Music server apart from Sonos, making the Era 300 the only other way to experience Apple Music's spatial audio from a single speaker right now, besides the HomePod. So I'm loving life being a subscriber. There's also Amazon Music, among others, with their version of spatial. Spotify though, still nothing. Now, don't get me wrong, standard stereo music still sounds very impressive on this speaker, and I'd say it's worth it for that alone. But spatial audio adds another level of immersion and involvement to the experience, and the fact that such a huge majority of music listeners can't experience spatial audio music because of their subscription is such a shame. Obviously, that's not Sonos or the Era 300's fault, but my point is, if you were holding out on buying one of these in the hope Spotify would join the bandwagon soon, you're gonna have to wait a little while longer. That aside, spatial audio is worth it in my opinion, and part of the reason I think the Era 300 actually warrants its price tag. There are other options like the Apple HomePod I mentioned, but for me, the Era does it better. I mean, come on, there's a reason it's being used as a reference monitor in most spatial audio mixing studios. Of course, there's always a worry about the novelty value of things like this, and although I'm not quite seeking out spatial audio mixes the same way I was when the speaker was first released, I do believe it is the future of audio. Yeah, you still get the old bad mix now and again, but 90% of the time, the best mixes I find sport the Dolby Atmos badge in the Sonos app, so I'd recommend keeping an eye out for that. Thankfully, with more and more content being mastered and remastered, even those bad mixes are becoming fewer and farther between, so I guess that's a win for us all. Now, good news, like I promised at the beginning of the video, I've been putting the Era 300 through its paces, finding all of the best spatial audio and Dolby Atmos tracks, so there's no need for you guys to do the legwork. I've got you covered. Admittedly, listing them all here would take forever. Instead, if you scan this QR code here, you should be taken straight to our top picks. Let me know in the comments what you think, and of course, we're always down to hear your recommendations too. Also, let us know if you'd like us to share recommendations like this more. We're always keen to share great finds with you guys, and vice versa. Right, back to the review. When it comes to the best use case, as a standalone speaker for music, the Era 300 is still just as impressive as it was when it was first released, and I really enjoyed having this settled on my media unit. I was thinking of adding a sub mini to my single 300, but thankfully, having helped review these with Lou for the channel, I was lucky enough to hear them as a stereo pair before I bought them, and they do a surprisingly good job at adding to the bass, so for now, I'd say I'm perfectly happy without the sub mini. I'd probably say a stereo pair is the best way to enjoy music on these speakers, and I would have had a second one at home much sooner if it weren't for my partner needing, well, a little more convincing. The stereo imaging is phenomenal, creating a truly immersive soundstage where music feels like it's surrounding you and not just coming from two separate boxes. And like I said, it really steps up the bass performance too. Plus, I was also easily able to switch these into surround sound rears for my Sonos home cinema, so it's a no-brainer, right? I usually use Era 100s for my Beam and Sub Mini at home, and I initially thought these would be a little overkill for that sort of setup. And I still think that's the case, at least for my room. Now, when it comes to Atmos for movies, just like I said in my initial review, when these are set up as rears, in the right setup, nothing from Sonos comes close in terms of immersion. The dedicated height channels add an extra layer of detail that you just can't replicate psychoacoustically. And for me, again, warrants their RRP, let alone the price you can find them for during the sales. Now, while they are overkill for my current setup, with the Arc and Sub Gen 3 we've got in our showroom, there's no denying that this is where the Era 300s truly thrive. So if you've got the right space, this is the ultimate use case for this speaker, hands down. Now, I know you're probably wondering what I think about the Era 300s in comparison to the 5, and I'm not going to spend too much time here as we've already got full dedicated comparisons on our channel for you guys to go and watch, but it all depends on what you're after. These are two completely different speakers, and if you want to dissect every detail from your music and movies, enjoy Dolby Atmos tracks, the Era 300 will be the option for you. But for a more powerful and room-filling performance, the 5 is the better fit. There's also all of that chatter about a potential Era 500 to bear in mind too. A year on, I've not heard anything concrete to tell you guys just yet, but I can still see that coming one day in the future for sure. When though, is a different question. Right, let's cut to the chase. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know I'm a big fan of this speaker. No, it's not flawless, it definitely has some quirks, but overall it's been a great addition to my home setup, and hopefully we'll see more exciting releases like this from Sonos in the future. But the big question, should you buy it? Well, for me, if you've got the budget and you're on the hunt for something to really bring your music and movies alive, then this is a no-brainer. It's not just good for spatial and Atmos either, it excels with standard stereo content too. The key thing to remember is that this is home entertainment we're talking about. The reason we spend money on this sort of tech is because it should be fun, innovative, and exciting, or at least that's the case for me, and the Era 300 does all of the above in abundance. Is it a needs must? No. There are other great options out there if you're on a tighter budget or if you have different boxes to tick from Sonos and beyond, but this does feel like a next generation product if you're ready to get on board. Right, there it is guys. What are your thoughts on the Era 300s? Let me know down in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and I'll catch you in the next one.